Hey everybody, we're back again with another Stone-Faced Reactions, reacting to Gundam 00F, Chapter 9, Rondo of Fate. Um, I was just wanted to bring up Rondo. I don't exactly know the definition of the word Rondo. I just remember that game that I helped play test. Rondo was specifically used as a transportation sort of thing. So I guess Vehicle of Fate would kind of be a fitting thing here. I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up. Let's go ahead and go into comment response time. We have Loghae Lung saying the GN drive that was taken by Farachette was Kyrios' drive. He ejected his drive before getting captured off screen. Veda knows all, and yes, the original crew tries to cut ties with Veda, but is still trackable. Veda just hides the info from Ribbons, and yes, the guy that was kicked was the immortal Patrick. Makes sense. The drive had to come from somewhere, and feels very believable that I'd forget something from near the end of season 1, here when we are recording near the end of season 2. As for the tracking stuff, yeah, technically you are responding to a chapter before the one I'm currently on, such is the upload schedule, so I think that it just falls within what we already know or what I've already addressed in the chapter you're probably reading this at, and not the one that I'm talking to you now in. We also have Joss Phoenix, the immortal Corlasor. He's so epic they started to use him as a meme in the next Gundams, in the next Gundams in the backgrounds. Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of if you're putting wrong words here. I'm trying to read it as you've typed it, just in case next is a specific show and not next Gundam as in the show after this. My ignorance of the matter behooves me to not be able to correct. Also remember that Hanyo Tierra would be like a little brother kinds of. I did like that they tried to get all the weird stuff that was hazy on the main show, and it's not just this happened and this happened, but that they managed to create a story that is interesting to follow. Um, I assume that when you said Corlisor, that you meant Patrick, as the previous comment, but I guess that's his last name or his nickname? I don't know. I know who you're talking about, and that's all we needed to do. As for the rest of the comment, though, yeah, I get the same feel here to what Symphogear does with its bonus episodes. I complained the entire second season of Symphogear about a specific plot point that went unanswered in the first season. Then we watched the bonus episodes and it got answered immediately. Sometimes you just really need that side material to be satisfied. So, yeah. Otherwise, no real comments about things other than I apologize if I make any immediate mistakes that I don't edit out because I have pushed this off way too far. Had a lot of editing problems with some Fate slash Jujutsu Kaisen material, and it's really pushed my recording schedule a little bit back on this, so just bear with me. But let's just hop into it. We start this chapter off, apparently, where Cowboy Bebop begins. A mystical tent in the middle of nowhere. This time, we are doing tarot card readings, it seems. We only see Hixar and the fortune teller, but it feels like the text should be in a Hayana's voice, given what we've seen of how they talk and mock. I will say now, in case I screw it up later, that I did have to scroll back up into my notes to confirm Hayana's name again. Hanyo is just the name that comes to mind for me, and now that we've gotten an almost inversion of the same name on a lookalike character, it's very confusing. no end. Whoever the character speaking is, they laugh and suggest that humans are interesting for thinking that they can see the future in card reading. I feel vindicated by the next page, as the fortune teller was Hayana. Sorry, I almost did Hanyo again. So I got the feel of their voice fairly well. Though, why she suddenly erected a tent and decided to dress up like a fortune teller is beyond my understanding. Hixar is in the tent with her, but now we can see he isn't even facing the table or looking at what she's doing. And for Hayana's part, she's just mostly talking to herself as she adjusts the cards, explaining that the reason that she is even reading the cards is to help Veda understand humans, as it is the purpose of the link. I will say that I only tried to do tarot readings once in my life and never memorized anything, nor do I remember how to do it now. So they could pull anything they wanted in this first section, and I'd have no idea if it was the generally accepted method of doing fortune tellings. Heiana starts by asking how the world will be changed, drawing the Emperor card, then noting that the world is unified around the UN, just as the Emperor had planned. And we, of course, get an image of ribbons, with a shadow army of UN Gundams behind him. This also catches Hixar's attention, as he turns ever so slightly to look towards the table. Heiana next asks about Celestial Being, pulling the Death card. Surrounding her are images of the fight that we saw Hanyo, sorry, this is already getting to me, flying through when she was in the data stream connected to Veda a few chapters back. Heiana concludes that the damage was so great that even the surviving members of Celestial Being aren't making moves anymore, that it is over. Regarding the table, Hixar then indicates that the death card is upside down, which changes the meaning. As such, the reverse of death is regeneration and rebirth. I've said it once, so I'll say it again. I'm bad at identifying specific Gundams in a series where the designs are done mostly by a single person. I say this to indicate that I can only guess that is the Pluton in the background of the rebirth comment, given that the Pluton's power is supposed to be resurrection or something like that. I guess they are doing a three card draw, as Heiana then asks for their purpose and draws the star, indicating that its meaning is hope. Hixar stands up and leaves the tent, looking at some radiant object in the sky. On face value, I'd think that the star in this would be representing Hixar himself, and whatever he is going to do in the coming chapters would then push him into a hope representing position. But the way we've been riding Fawn this whole time, I wouldn't be surprised if it represented him, and Hixar is just here to spur Fawn into action in some way. In a heavily shaded panel, we see that Hixar is walking out of an actual tent in the desert to stare up at the Gundam that he stole in the previous chapter. Just standing out in the open for anyone to see, giving the whole game away, as he then comments one more, which I think has something to do with what he said in the hangar when he was stealing this one in the first place. That, or it's an allusion to something he's yet to do. And instantly I'm proven wrong, as Heiana asks him what he means, evidently indicating that there is one more card left for her to draw. Pulling the Justice card, she looks shocked, while Hixar chuckles. The Astrea is mentioned, but I don't know how this regards to justice, unless it just happens to be that it's the Gundam in their control, and will be their tool for justice. The next panel just returns us to the present, where we come back to the scene of Fawn entering the hangar with the Abhul. The rest of Farachette standing about in shock as to what's just happened. Wait. Was the previous bit the past and they were deciding what Gundam to take? And then they already had a Gundam? Or was it happens after this and now they are just remembering back to what happened? Without context, this is kind of confusing. We then move to another shocked moment from Chawl's past as she recalls someone that she believes should be dead. Over her right shoulder is an image of a person that I want to say maybe looks like the guy from her flashback a few chapters ago. But I also think that might have been the other guy that I keep saying looks like Echo. I'm not actually going to go back and check. These are just my stream of thoughts as I look at it. In the Gundam's cockpit, Hixar is laughing again, causing an elated Hyana to note that it's rare to see Hixar laugh, and that they are happy they came here and got to meet him. Back over in Yapul, Fawn announces that they are coming, while this time I meant Hanyo, warns that fighting without its tail section would be unadvisable, saying, "Fine!" Fawn takes this to mean to transform into jet mode, here in the hangar. One of two things is going to happen here. I feel like either comedy moment is about to happen and the zero momentum Abhul is just going to fall to the ground, or the sudden burst of thrust needed to keep it in the air is going to kamikaze it right into its target. Looks like I was right on the second one, as we see the Abhul's jets let loose and it flies right at the Estrella. In the second panel, we can see the large gun it was holding, the Estrella, falling away, indicating that it's brought both arms up in front of it, despite our view being from its back. We then get a two-page spread where we see the tip of the Abhul fly right at the cockpit of the Estrella, but the hands of the Gundam grip it and stop it from piercing the armor. If that was what would actually happen anyways, assuming it didn't just blow up against the Gundam. The head of the Abhul pops up and suddenly starts firing its head-mounted guns. Just a note, one of the least effective weapons I've ever seen on a Gundam are its head-mounted ones. At best, I think I've seen them take out a single jet in one of the animated series before. If I had to guess, I think it was probably one of the early episodes of Gundam Wing. Other than that, useless. In the larger shot, we see the sparks fly as the shots impact against the Estrella. Everyone on the ground, watching, commenting, not running for safety or anything. Sherilyn shouts as the Estrella hurls the Abhul to the side, knocking into a wall of the hangar as it transforms back into its humanoid mode. Fawn cursing as he watches the Estrella turn its back on him. And here I realize I may have been saying the wrong suit the entire time. That or I completely misinterpreted the start of this chapter when the Estrella was mentioned. A glow begins to form in the Gundam that Hixar is piloting, and Sherilyn says that it's the GN field they installed to reinforce the saddle sud, implying that this is the saddle sud. Either way, the minute differences in each of their Gundams beyond the Abhuls really aren't coming into play in this hangar fight, so I can be wrong about this and not really change anything until later. Sherilyn can't believe that he'd used the GN field inside the hangar, and Chawl continues to look on in disbelief. Vaughn curses at Hixar, opening fire with the guns built into its extended torso section. But since the GN field has already been activated, we can see them harmlessly hitting the space in front of the Gundam that Hixar is piloting. The shots continue to slam into the GM field with no effect on the Saddle Sud. In the cockpit, a smug Hyana compliments the control system the Gundam has for its GN particles despite its low output. On the ground, Chaul is still in shock, questioning if it's really him piloting due to the skills he's showing with the small with the small particle field. Once again, Hyana asks Hixar if they can kill them, to which, it seems, they turn off the GN field as the particles seem to lessen from where they were before. The Saddle Sud then leaps up, and we see the particle effect emerge around its legs. I assume that if it has such a low output, then the thing to read into here is that when it dropped the projection from its hands and is using the same amount of particles for propulsion. We see it then slowly vanish through the hole in the wall that Fawn made on his entrance last chapter. Echo seems relieved as he lets out a "he's gone." Chaul then just looks angry, while Sherilyn has a concerned look as she watches the Saddle Sud get stolen. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but every time I say Saddle Sud's name, all I think of is the Sack of Suds from My Cousin Vinny. Watch it, it's a good movie. We then have Fawn cursing to himself as Hanyo asks if they are going to pursue. Fawn says that there is no need, but Hanyo argues that they took one of the GN drives. Fawn clearly doesn't give a shit, as he asks what the problem is. They still have the pools, and even if they had to, they still only have one pilot. Clearly, this feels like a swipe at Echo, but I guess also one at Hanyo, since they are also a Meister, given that their name anyway. Either way, Fawn goes back into crazy mode, declaring it's just more fun this way, and does the Joker laugh to follow. Back at the control room, Echo is asking who they were and points out that Hanyo probably knows the answer. Going into thought mode, we see that Hanyo does know, but it is stuck since telling them would go against Veda's instructions. Looking over to Fawn for help, Fawn says that they shouldn't really care who they are, and that Chaul doesn't need to tell them. In the background of the scene, we can also see the screens displaying a replay of the attack that they've been going over. I feel like if I were a part of the group, this is where my annoyance at our pilot would reach its boiling point. He didn't go after the GN drive. The thing we are constantly telling each other is super important. Now he's telling us not to question who they are. I love Fawn, but moments like this are just grating. Echo, trying to protect his one shot at being a pilot someday, whines that they will lose the solar furnace if they don't pursue any leads. Fawn just gets up and says he will just have to bring it back, disregarding the last few pages of his own dialogue. Echo asks if he knows where they went, and Fawn says that he doesn't, but he has a hunch. Chaul shouts, sorry. Like, who is Chaul shooting? Chaul shouts that she wants to help as Fawn is leaving the room, but he shrugs her off, saying that he is the only one who can use the key to the world, which I assume is just another way of saying I'm a Meister, and the Gundams which can affect the world, as I've been commenting on the whole volume so far, are the keys to the world. then tells them to prep the Estrella for launch. I assume we are moving drives yet again, since it seems to be an interchangeable component. Back in the hangar, Sherilyn and Hanyo are discussing the fact that if he had used the Estrella Type F2 earlier today, he would have won, and that they used the reserve parts on the Exia. As they are talking, we see the shadow of another Nico person walking into the hangar, asking if they shall take this one as well. I am just at a loss for this scene, as Fawn was in the pool when the fight happened, so I have no clue how he was meant to use the Estrella in F2 mode. Also, they just let this girl walk in a second time. Alright. Overall, this chapter was interesting, but also a huge step down from the quality and storyline we had been building up from in the last couple of chapters. I feel like this one was filled with filler fight frames whose only service to the story was to indicate that Hixar can do more with less. Fawn was more annoying than I'd ever felt about him before. Typically, his crazy moments are surrounded by moments of clarity and insight. This time really felt like he was an anchor to the team, and I couldn't understand it in context. On the score spectrum, I'd give this a 6 out of 10. It's not bad per se, and still better than the very first chapters of the series. It's just a letdown considering the build-up we've come from. So yeah, this has been Chapter 9, Rondo of Fate. Thanks for joining me again, and I will catch you next time.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another Stone-Faced Reactions. If you have an idea of another video we could go ahead and watch, go ahead and put it in the comments down below and we'll add it to the wheel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about this video and what parts you liked. And until then, we'll see you next time. Is this too goofy?